The galaxy believed it understood first contact. For millennia, the rules were simple. A young, developing world would be discovered. Diplomats would be dispatched. They would speak in soft, reassuring tones, and soon after, fear would give way to control. Earth was supposed to be just another mark on the star maps, another easy conquest for the Galactic Council. High above Earth's brilliant blue surface, a colossal alien station hung in the void, its silver rings gleaming under the distant sun. Inside, dozens of alien leaders, representing species that had ruled the stars since before humans learned to write, watched the planet below. They expected panic. They anticipated chaos. They were prepared for weak signals, small ships, and desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, space went dark. One by one, shapes materialized from the blackness. These were not blinking scientific probes or clumsy civilian craft. They were warships. Hundreds at first, then thousands. They dropped out of hyperspace with no sound, no light, no warning. Their long, heavy hulls were forged from dark, utilitarian metal. There were no bright colors, no sharp, intimidating angles designed to inspire fear. There was only quiet, immense strength. The human fleet halted at a perfect distance from Earth. Every ship locked into a flawless formation. The lines were straight, the gaps between vessels exact. No movement was wasted. On the alien station, scanners flared to life, running at full power. The results sent a chill through the council chamber, causing several members to freeze in their seats. These ships, one alien commander said, his voice slow and heavy, they are not ceremonial. Another leaned closer to his screen, his multifaceted eyes wide. They are old designs, but heavily reinforced. These are built for survival. The atmosphere in the chamber grew thick with tension. Humans were a young species, barely spacefaring by galactic standards. They should not possess fleets like this, not fleets that looked as if they were born from the crucible of war. Still, the council clung to their centuries of experience. Young races often tried to appear strong. The High Speaker announced, his voice a calm counterpoint to the rising anxiety. They display weapons to conceal their fear. A signal was sent to the planet below, a peaceful greeting, a formal request to open diplomatic talks. Minutes crawled by. There was no reply. Instead, the human fleet shifted. It wasn't an attack formation. It was something else entirely. Ships rotated with a synchronized, mechanical precision. Weapon systems hummed to life, but their barrels remained lowered. Shields flared briefly, then stabilized into a steady, powerful glow. Every maneuver was slow, controlled, and deliberate. The aliens felt it then. This was not fear. This was discipline. Deep beneath Earth's mountains and cities, in hardened command bunkers, human commanders watched the same scene unfold. Men and women from every nation stood shoulder to shoulder. Their faces were calm, their voices steady. They had trained for this moment for decades. Humanity had always known that one day they would be found. The order was given. Hold position. No one questioned it. Above Earth, the alien sensors detected something new. Massive heat signatures. Power readings that soared far beyond what a young species should be capable of generating. One of the alien scientists whispered, "They are not trying to scare us." "Then what are they doing?" Another asked, his voice trembling slightly. The answer came without words. A single human ship moved forward, detaching from the main fleet. It was not their largest vessel, nor their smallest. It stopped halfway between Earth and the alien station, a lone sentinel in the vast emptiness. All its weapons remained inactive. A transmission channel opened. There was no music, no complex symbols, just a human voice. It was clear, calm, and direct. "This is the United Earth Defense Fleet." The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. Defense? The word hung in the air. The voice continued. "You have entered our system. You are being observed. We are prepared to protect our world." There were no threats, no demands, just a simple, unwavering statement of fact. The High Speaker, hiding his growing unease behind a veil of authority, responded quickly. "We are the Galactic Council. We come in peace. Power down your fleet and send representatives to our station." The human reply was almost instantaneous, negative. The single word echoed through the grand chamber, sharp and final. "Earth does not send its leaders into unknown space," the human voice stated. "We send its guardians." A heavy pause followed. In that silence, the alien council felt a strange weight settle upon them. The human fleet did not move. It did not attack. It did not retreat. It simply waited. The High Speaker narrowed his eyes. "Is this a show of force?" Another pause, this one longer, more deliberate. Then the human voice returned, carrying a quiet intensity. that was more unnerving than any shouted threat. "No," it said. "This is restraint." That one word changed everything. Alien commanders frantically re-examined their data. The human ships carried weapons with the power to tear fleets apart. Their armor was thick enough to endure direct hits from capital-class weaponry. Their engines were built for long, grueling wars of attrition, not for short diplomatic missions. These were not ships designed for conquest. They were ships built for survival. An alien officer whispered what many were now thinking. They are ready, because they expect to be attacked. The Council had seen this mentality before, in brutal warrior races and expansionist empires. But this was different. The human ships were protecting Earth, not menacing the Council station. Their guns remained lowered. Their shields were oriented inward, forming a protective shell around their homeworld. They were guarding something precious. The High Speaker realized the truth, far too late. Humanity had no interest in joining the galaxy. They had come to defend their home from it. As if on cue, a new wave of signals appeared on the alien screens. Thousands of human ground units were activating all across the planet's surface, not in panic, but in perfect, synchronized readiness. Cities went dark to conserve and protect power grids. Civilian shelters opened their blast doors. Military forces stood alert at their posts. There was no chaos, no fear, only methodical, cold preparation. The human fleet sent one final message. "We do not seek war," the convoy said, "but we will not lose our world." Silence descended once more, absolute and profound. The galaxy had arrived expecting to find weakness. Instead, it had found unshakable resolve. And somewhere deep within the Council chamber, for the first time in centuries, an alien leader felt a sensation that had become utterly unfamiliar: uncertainty. Because if this was how humans greeted strangers, what would they do to their enemies? The Galactic Council did not like being told no. For centuries, every species they encountered had obeyed. Some begged for their place in the galactic order. Some resisted, putting up a brave but ultimately futile fight. In the end, they all failed. The Council had grown accustomed to power without challenge, a quiet dominion over countless stars. So, when humanity delivered a calm, simple refusal, it felt insulting. Inside the grand, silver chamber, voices rose in a chaotic symphony of alien languages. Translators, both organic and machine, struggled to keep up with the cacophony of outrage. "They dare to deny us," one counselor hissed, their voice a series of sharp clicks and whistles. "They're just a young species, hiding behind their primitive machines," another spat, their gelatinous form quivering with indignation. The High Speaker, a being of immense age and authority, lifted a single, clawed hand. Silence fell over the chamber, immediate and absolute. "The humans are afraid," he declared, his voice resonating with ancient power. "This display of defiance is nothing more than fear dressed up as strength." A murmur of agreement swept through the assembled delegates. It was an easier truth to believe. So, the Council decided to teach this upstart species a lesson. A small, controlled, undeniable lesson. This would not be a war, not yet. It would be a test. Far from the blue marble of Earth, at the very edge of the solar system, a lone human listening post floated near an empty, nameless star. It was an old model, small and lightly armed, a relic built to watch the darkness, not to fight it. The Council chose this target with careful precision. A single alien strike group, comprised of sleek, impossibly fast ships, broke away from the main fleet. Their orders were simple and direct: destroy the outpost, show humanity their true place in the cosmos. The attack came without warning. Silent beams of alien energy cut through the vacuum of space like incandescent fire. The human outpost's shields flared violently, holding for a moment before cracking under the immense pressure. Metal superheated and burned. Critical systems began to fail, one after another. Inside the station, alarm shrieked a metallic cry of doom. Human soldiers ran to their stations, not in panic, but with a disciplined, rehearsed order. They sealed blast doors, rerouted power to backup systems. Wounded crew members were dragged to the relative safety of the medical bay by their comrades. The outpost commander, Captain Elias Ward, watched the damage reports scroll across his screen, each line a new wound inflicted upon his command. The numbers were grim. They were hopelessly outmatched, outgunned, and outtouched. But the thought of surrender was never once mentioned. With a steady voice, he gave the command. Send the signal. A tightly focused distress call, a single desperate plea, burst into the void. Then, the outpost fired back. The human weapons were slower, louder, less elegant than the Council's refined instruments of destruction. They were brutal, kinetic things, but they hit hard. To the utter surprise of the attackers, one of the sleek alien ships took a direct hit, its shields buckling as it was forced to pull back. "They are resisting," an alien officer reported, a note of confusion in their transmission. Their tactical data suggested they should be fleeing or surrendering. Another replied. Infuriated by this unexpected defiance, the alien strike group increased their firepower, unleashing a devastating barrage. The entire outpost shook as if it were being torn apart by a giant, invisible hand. Fires bloomed in zero gravity, spreading through corridors. Hull plates tore away, exposing the station's inner workings to the cold vacuum of space. Still, the humans fought. Every soldier held their position. Every system was pushed to its absolute limit and beyond. When weapon stations went dark, engineers, knee-deep in sparks and smoke, rerouted power from non-essential systems. When the shields finally collapsed, the pilots used the station's own maneuvering thrusters to dodge incoming fire. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity of chaos and violence. And then, space itself seemed to change. Human ships arrived. It wasn't a grand fleet, not the full might of their navy. Just enough. 3 warships dropped out of hyperspace, materializing between the battered outpost and the alien fleet. They didn't open fire immediately. They moved with a cold, calculated purpose, positioning themselves as massive shields to protect the dying station. A single, simple message was transmitted, clear and unwavering. Step away from the station. The alien commander, watching from his command bridge millions of kilometers away, actually laughed. Destroy them, he ordered, dismissing the newcomers as a final, pathetic gesture. The aliens attacked, confident in their superiority. They were not ready for what came next. The human warships absorbed the first devastating strike. Armor glowed cherry red and sections buckled, but it held. Then, the human weapons answered. Their response was not a scattered volley. It was a focused, precise, and utterly brutal counterattack. One alien ship instantly lost its engines, tumbling dead in space. Another saw its entire weapons array vaporized. A third simply vanished in a silent, blinding flash of light. The alien commander, his arrogance evaporating into cold shock, ordered a full retreat. The strike group, what was left of it, turned and fled into the darkness. The human warships did not give chase. Their mission was not vengeance. They turned their attention back to the grievously wounded outpost. Rescue teams moved with practiced speed. Survivors were pulled from the twisted wreckage. Medics worked without rest, a quiet determination on their faces. There were no cheers, no celebrations of victory, only a grim, profound silence. Across the galaxy, the Council's long-range sensors had recorded everything. The delegates in the Silver Chamber watched the playback in stunned disbelief. That was a minor force, one counselor said quickly, trying to rationalize the outcome. The humans were simply lucky. But a seed of doubt had been planted in the heart of their unshakable confidence. The human ships had not fought like desperate prey. They fought like trained, disciplined defenders executing a flawless plan. Back on Earth, humanity's top commanders reviewed the same battle data. Their faces were grim. This was a test, one general stated, his voice low and serious. And we passed. They will push harder next time. Humanity did not celebrate this small, bloody victory. They prepared. Across the planet and its colonies, factories quietly shifted to full war production. Fleets were repositioned. Civilian populations on frontier worlds were warned, trained, and sheltered. Not because humans were a species that wanted war, but because they were a species that understood it. The Galactic Council, trying to regain control of the narrative, sent a formal message. Your outpost violated designated council space. Stand down your military forces or face the full consequences of your insubordination. The human reply came back faster than they expected. Our outpost was in our sovereign system, the disembodied voice said, calm and resolute. Your attack was unprovoked and an act of war. A short pause followed, pregnant with meaning. Then, we will not stand down. Pure, unadulterated anger filled the council chamber. They are openly challenging us, the high speaker roared. They are inviting their own destruction, another delegate cried out. But amidst the clamor, a quiet voice, belonging to one of the council's chief scientists, cut through the noise. No, she said softly. They are learning. A new silence fell, this one laced with apprehension. The humans were adapting, learning from this single encounter at a rate they had never witnessed before. Their response time was terrifyingly short. Their tactical coordination was impeccable, and most unnerving of all, their losses did not appear to break their morale. They seemed to strengthen their resolve. The council, feeling its authority being questioned for the first time in millennia, decided on escalation. A full fleet, hundreds of alien warships, a force of overwhelming power, began to move across the galaxy toward the Sol system. Not to destroy Earth, not yet. The plan was to frighten it into submission, to show them the futility of resistance. The galaxy watched, holding its collective breath. On Earth, the human fleet took formation once more. It was larger this time, stronger. New ships, fresh from orbital shipyards, joined the ranks. In cockpits across the fleet, pilots sat in silent readiness. On command bridges, commanders watched the stars, waiting for the storm to arrive. Humanity knew the truth now. The galaxy had not come in peace, and the next meeting would not be a calm negotiation. High above the tranquil blue of Earth, the alien ships began to gather, a swarm of metallic predators blotting out the stars. And for the very first time in their long history, the members of the Galactic Council began to wonder if they had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. Because humanity was no longer asking to be understood, they were preparing to be tested. The alien fleet arrived like a shadow. Hundreds of warships, silent and immense, dropped out of hyperspace all at once. Their dark shapes filled the starfield, their weapon ports glowing with stored, terrible power. To the Galactic Council, this wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration, a final warning. But to the people of Earth, it was a threat, a promise of annihilation. On every screen and every command center across the planet, human sensors screamed in protest. The alien fleet had stopped just outside Earth's defensive perimeter, far too close for comfort. Human commanders watched in a tense, shared silence. Hold formation. The order echoed across the fleet. The human ships didn't rush forward. They didn't retreat. Instead, they locked into intricate, layered defense lines that wrapped around Earth and the moon like a shield. Smaller, faster craft darted between the larger capital ships, moving like blood through veins, ensuring the fleet was a single, living entity. Then, the aliens opened a channel. A voice, cold and metallic, boomed across all frequencies. Humanity, the High Speaker declared, you have consistently resisted the authority of the Galactic Council. This is your final chance. Power down your fleets, or face the consequences. On Earth, millions listened, their hearts pounding in their chests. The human response came not from a politician, but from Fleet Admiral Rhea Cole. Her voice, broadcast from the bridge of the flagship, was unwavering. This is sovereign Earth space, she said, her tone as steady as stone. You are not welcome here. A moment of silence hung in the void. Then, the alien fleet powered its weapons, and in perfect, synchronized response, so did the humans. The first shot was fired by the aliens. A brilliant, blinding beam of energy cut across the darkness and slammed into a human cruiser. Its shields flared bright white, held for a precious second, then failed catastrophically. The ship burned, a silent testament to the aliens' power. But it did not explode. Crippled and dying, it stayed in line, a final act of defiance. Then came humanity's answer. Human ships opened fire. Their weapons were not beautiful or elegant. They were loud, fast, and violent. Swarms of missiles painted streaks of fire across the black. Railguns thundered, sending slugs of solid metal tearing through space at unimaginable speeds. Lasers burned searing lines across alien hulls, searching for weakness. The battle for Earth had begun. The aliens attacked in relentless waves, confident in their superior numbers and advanced technology. They expected a quick, decisive victory. What they got was a coordinated, brutal defense. Every human movement was planned. Every target was chosen with cold, calculating precision. Human ships took hits. Some were lost, their lights winking out in the chaos. But the line held. Alien commanders, observing from their pristine bridges, expected panic, disorder. They saw none. Human pilots remained calm under a storm of fire. Damage control teams worked frantically, even as their ships were being torn apart around them. When a ship could no longer fight, it would pull itself out of the line, making way for another to take its place, a seamless, disciplined maneuver even in the face of death. The human fleet was bleeding, but it was not breaking. Near the moon, a colossal alien battleship finally punched through the human line. It turned its main guns on Earth's orbital defense satellites, tearing them apart with contemptuous ease. But before it could inflict more damage, a single human destroyer, dwarfed by the behemoth, turned and rammed it head-on. Both ships vanished in a silent, brilliant flash of fire, a sacrifice that stunned the galaxy watching from afar. This was a kind of war the aliens had never encountered. Human commanders adapted on the fly, their tactics shifting with terrifying speed. New firing patterns emerged, exploiting microsecond openings. Alien shields, once thought impenetrable, began to flicker and fail. Human weapons, relentless and precise, found the weak points, the cracks in the armor. The alien advance slowed. And then, something changed. The human ships began to move differently. They were falling back, but in an orderly, controlled retreat. Are they finally retreating? An alien officer asked, a hint of relief in his voice. The high speaker leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. No, he said slowly, a cold dread creeping into his voice. They are drawing us in. The alien fleet, sensing victory, surged forward. It was the mistake the humans had been waiting for. All around the moon, hidden weapon platforms, dormant until this very moment, activated. Massive cannons, built for close-range devastation, opened fire. The alien ships were caught in a kill box, hit from all sides, trapped in a web of their own making. The human counterattack was swift and merciless. A full battle group, fresh and untouched, emerged from behind the dark side of Earth, hitting the alien flank with overwhelming force. Alien formations, once so perfect, broke apart. Confusion spread through their command network as conflicting orders flew back and forth. Human ships advanced with a brutal, single-minded focus, their guns blazing. The aliens had never faced a species that would willingly plan to lose ground just to win space. They had walked into a trap of planetary scale. In the midst of the renewed offensive, a human carrier took a fatal hit. It exploded, scattering escape pods like seeds into the void. In a move that defied all military logic, several human ships broke formation, under heavy fire, to retrieve the survivors. The aliens hesitated, their commanders watching in disbelief. They are risking their battle positions to save a few survivors, one said, his voice a mixture of confusion and awe. They should be pressing their advantage, another replied. But they weren't. Human rescue ships weaved through the wreckage, pulling pilots from their burning pods. Some were hit, some never returned. Still, they came, and that single, selfless act seemed to change the very nature of the battle. The remaining human ships fought with a renewed ferocity, as if fueled by the courage of their comrades. The rate of alien losses spiked. A strange feeling tightened in the high speaker's chest. These humans didn't fight like conquerors hungry for glory. They fought like protectors, like a cornered animal defending its young. They fought for each other. Slowly, hesitantly, the alien fleet began to withdraw. The human ships didn't chase. They simply held their position, their fleet a scarred but unbroken wall around their home. The space between Earth and Moon was a graveyard of smoke and debris, where broken hulls drifted in eternal silence. Earth still stood. The battle was over. It wasn't a clean victory. It wasn't a clear loss. But everything had changed. Across the galaxy, the news spread like a shockwave. Worlds that had once feared humanity's perceived aggression now watched with a newfound, quiet respect. Military analysts from 100 species replayed the battle data, trying to comprehend what they had seen. The conclusion was undeniable. Humanity was not weak or chaotic. They were disciplined. They accepted loss. They adapted with terrifying speed. And they protected their own, no matter the cost. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session. This outcome was not anticipated. One counselor admitted, his voice heavy. "We have gravely underestimated them," said another. The high speaker remained silent, his gaze fixed on a new data feed. The human fleet was moving, not back toward the safety of Earth. They were moving out toward alien space, not to attack, but to follow, to observe, to be ready. And in that moment, the entire galaxy felt a fundamental shift. The humans had been tested, and they had passed. And now, the galaxy would face a test of its own, because humanity had shown the universe something far rarer and more powerful than simple strength. They had shown resolve. The galaxy waited. It held its breath, expecting the inevitable fury of humanity. That was the grim, predictable rhythm of war. A battle is fought, pride is wounded, and revenge follows like a shadow. Planets burn, and entire populations pay the price for the decisions of their leaders. But this time, the rhythm was broken. Humanity did nothing. Human fleets remained in formation, a silent, disciplined line in the cold vacuum of space. The ships that were damaged were carefully pulled back from the front. And then, something strange began to happen. Rescue craft, small and nimble, started moving through the vast fields of wreckage, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. They were searching for survivors, but not just their own. Adrift among the twisted metal and shattered hulls were alien escape pods. Inside, wounded soldiers of the very species that had just attacked Earth waited for either a swift death or a brutal capture. Instead, they saw something impossible. Human ships approached them, slowly, deliberately. Their weapon ports remained closed, their energy signatures cold. Hatches opened, and human hands, clad in sealed gloves, reached out not in anger, but in aid. One by one, the alien soldiers were pulled aboard human vessels. Their wounds were treated. Their palpable fear was met not with threats or interrogation, but with calm voices and the steady, professional care of medics. Across the galaxy, on countless monitors and sensor rays, observers watched this unfold in stunned disbelief. "They are rescuing enemy soldiers," an alien intelligence officer whispered, his voice filled with confusion. "They should be finishing them," his superior replied, his own certainty shaken. But the humans did neither. On board a human medical ship, the reality was even more surreal. Alien prisoners, now patients, lay in clean, sterile beds. An array of sophisticated machines hummed quietly, monitoring their vital signs. Human medics moved with a quiet focus, their sole purpose to keep these former enemies alive. One high-ranking alien officer, his arm bandaged and his body weak, watched a human guard standing silently by the doorway. He couldn't reconcile what he was seeing with a lifetime of military doctrine. Finally, he had to ask, "Why?" He rasped, his voice hoarse. "Why are you doing this?" The human guard turned, his expression unreadable behind his helmet, but his voice was simple and clear. "Because the fight is over." That simple answer, that five-word philosophy, spread across the galactic networks faster and more effectively than any weapon could have. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, the ruling body of a dozen starfaring species, a growing unease began to settle. Human fleets weren't advancing. They weren't issuing demands for surrender or reparations. Instead, they sent a single, concise message. "We will return your wounded," the transmission said. "The conflict can end here." The council was paralyzed. This wasn't weakness. They knew that now. This was something far more terrifying: control. The human commanders, it seemed, understood something the rest of the galaxy had long forgotten. War wasn't just about destruction. It was about decision. It was about choosing when to fight, how to fight, and most importantly, when to stop. Then, at a council outpost near a sliver of neutral space, human ships arrived without warning. Alien defense platforms tensed, their targeting systems locking on. But the ships carried no attack force. Their manifests listed only diplomats and medics. And as they approached the docking bay, the alien guards watched as the human ships powered down their weapon systems completely. The message was unmistakable. "We are not here to fight." Inside the council chamber, the air was thick with tension. The most powerful leaders in the known galaxy stared at the human representatives. They weren't towering soldiers or grim-faced warriors. They were just people in simple, practical uniforms. Fleet Admiral Rhea Cole, the leader of the human delegation, spoke calmly, her voice steady. "You tested us," she said, her eyes meeting those of the High Speaker. "You attacked our world. We defended it." The High Speaker, a being whose species communicated through shifting crystalline structures, shimmered with indignation. "And now you expect a swift peace." "We expect understanding," Cole replied. She placed a small data crystal on the massive central table. "These are the complete, unedited battle records," she explained. "Your own military analysts can confirm what happened and what didn't." A counselor from a warrior race leaned forward, skeptical. "Why show us this?" "To gloat about your victory, because we want you to know the truth," Cole said, her gaze sweeping across the room. This was us holding back. A profound silence filled the chamber. The humans didn't boast. They didn't threaten. They simply explained. They revealed that human fleets were designed primarily for defense. Their weapons possessed the power to shatter planets, but they were never, ever aimed at them. Their core military strategy focused on disabling enemy fleets, on stopping a threat, not on erasing worlds and committing genocide. "We fight wars so our children don't have to," Cole said softly. An old, cynical alien general scoffed from his seat. "Every empire says that right before it swallows its neighbors." "We are not an empire," Cole answered, her voice hardening just slightly. "We are a species that survived itself." That single sentence struck the council with the force of a physical blow. On the chamber's main view screen, a montage of human history began to play. It was a brutal, heartbreaking story. Global wars, catastrophic losses, the chilling specter of self-inflicted extinction. But then, recovery, unification, a slow, painful crawl back from the brink. The assembled aliens finally saw it. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had developed wisdom. They had faced their own worst impulses and had learned, at an almost unbearable cost, the true price of total war. A council scientist, a being of pure logic, spoke in hushed tones. They limit themselves. On purpose, yes, Cole confirmed. We do. The council, still skeptical, demanded proof beyond a single battle. Humanity provided it. In a distant, lawless system, a notorious pirate fleet attacked a civilian convoy from a neutral world. The council watched, expecting the humans to arrive with overwhelming force and obliterate the pirates. Instead, a small squadron of human ships warped in with surgical precision. They didn't fire a single planet-shattering torpedo. They unleashed waves of disabling energy, frying the pirates' engines and jamming their weapon systems. Human marines boarded the crippled ships, resting the crews with minimal bloodshed. The civilians were rescued, the pirates were taken into custody, and the human ships simply left. No grandstanding, no conquest, just a problem, efficiently and cleanly solved. The galaxy watched in silent awe. The terrifying power of humanity was undeniable, but it was a power that was guided, restrained, and used with a level of discipline that was utterly alien to them. And across the galactic consciousness, fear began to change its shape. The fear of what humanity might do to them was slowly being replaced by a new, more unsettling fear. The fear of becoming humanity's enemy. Within the council, factions formed. Some argued for an immediate alliance, seeing humanity as a stabilizing force in a chaotic galaxy. Others whispered of a preemptive strike, a desperate gamble to eliminate this strange new power before it became too late. Then, a secret, heavily encrypted message reached the High Speaker's private terminal. It was from a source deep within the uncharted territories, a part of space the Council pretended didn't exist. The message spoke of a hidden empire, a shadow civilization that ruled through absolute terror and conquest. They had been watching the galaxy's affairs, and they had noticed humanity, and they saw this new, merciful power not as an oddity, but as a direct threat to their entire philosophy of rule. They are coming, the message warned, and they will not hold back. A chill, colder than the vacuum of space, went through the High Speaker. He suddenly understood. Humanity wasn't the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They were simply the only ones capable of, and willing to, stop the ones that truly were. He looked at the departing human delegates, their backs straight as they walked out of the chamber. You fight differently, he admitted, his voice a low hum. Admiral Cole paused at the doorway and looked back. Yes, she replied, because we remember what unchecked power does to the one who wields it. As the humans left, a single alien guard at the gate watched them go. His expression wasn't one of hatred or fear anymore. It was hope. Across the galaxy, the stories continued to spread like wildfire. Humans who saved their enemies, humans who protected the innocent, humans who fought wars without succumbing to the hatred that fueled them. And somewhere, in the endless, silent darkness between the stars, another fleet was on the move. A fleet that cared nothing for mercy, nothing for restraint, and nothing for peace. A fleet that would test humanity's resolve in a way the Galactic Council never could. The real war was just beginning. It began without a warning. No message, no demand, no chance to negotiate. At the very edge of human space, the quiet colony world of Haven simply burned. The sky above it turned a terrifying shade of red as unknown ships ripped open the fabric of hyperspace and descended. They were colossal, black as the void, and shaped like sharpened blades. The moment they arrived, their weapons opened fire, a relentless barrage of pure destruction. Entire cities vanished in blinding flashes of light. Across the human network, sensors screamed in panic. This isn't a council fleet, one analyst's voice trembled. These ships, they're built for extermination. Another whispered in horror. Down on Haven, chaos erupted. Civilians sprinted for the shelters that were never meant to face an assault of this magnitude. Human defense forces scrambled, fighting back with everything they had, but they were hopelessly outmatched, unprepared for this level of sheer, brutal force. One by one, entire districts went silent, their signals blinking out into nothingness. Just before the planet's communications network was completely severed, a single, desperate signal escaped, a distress call. Back on Earth, Admiral Rhea Cole watched the live feed from Haven cut to static. Her face was a mask of cold fury, her jaw tight. This is the enemy we were warned about, she said, her voice low and steady. They're not here to test us. They're here to erase us. The order went out instantly, a shockwave through the entire human military. Every fleet, every ship, turned. There was no debate, no hesitation. Human fleets jumped to Haven at maximum speed, pushing their engines to the absolute limit. Commanders across the system knew they might already be too late, but they pushed anyway. It's what humans do. When the first relief ships dropped out of hyperspace, The sight that greeted them was a scar across the heavens. Haven was a world on fire. Flames licked across entire continents, visible even from orbit, which was now a graveyard of twisted metal and debris. The enemy fleet hadn't retreated. They were waiting, welcoming the human response with an eerie stillness, and then the battle exploded. There was no maneuvering, no preamble. Human ships charged straight into the enemy's wall of fire. Shields flared, sputtered, and died in seconds. Hulls buckled and cracked under the onslaught. But the humans didn't pull back. They pushed harder. Human carriers unleashed their fighters in endless, streaming waves. Tiny wasps swarming against giant predators. Through the fire and chaos, ground forces dropped in armored pods, plunging toward the surface on a desperate mission to reach any survivors. On the ground, soldiers fought street by street, block by block, pulling dazed and wounded civilians from the smoking rubble of their homes. The enemy showed no mercy, no quarter. They began targeting the shelters, and that changed everything. That single act of barbarism removed every restraint. Human commanders lifted all limitations. Weapon systems that had been locked away for moral reasons were now set free. The human fleets changed their tactics. They stopped aiming for individual ships and started aiming for systems. Enemy command vessels were hit with a convergence of focused fire, their control networks collapsing under the surgical assault. Entire enemy formations froze mid-battle, suddenly leaderless and confused. The enemy still fought on, wild and brutal, but humanity adapted. They always did. In one unforgettable moment, a human cruiser deliberately positioned itself between a volley of enemy fire and a falling hospital ship. It took hit after hit, its structure groaning, until it finally broke apart, sacrificing itself to save the wounded. Escape pods scattered like seeds into the chaos, and human fighters, ignoring the battle raging around them, flew through curtains of fire to retrieve them. The enemy commanders watched this unfold in utter confusion. They sacrificed victory to save the weak. One of them broadcasted, a tone of disbelief in its alien voice. "They will lose," another replied, certain of their logic. They were wrong. For every civilian saved, the human soldiers on the ground and the crews in the sky fought with renewed ferocity. The enemy, for the first time, began to fall back. It wasn't a retreat born of fear, but of cold calculation. They had done their damage. They had made their point. As their fleet withdrew into hyperspace, a single, chilling message was sent across all channels. "You cannot protect everyone," the disembodied enemy voice declared. "We will return." The human ships didn't chase. They stayed. Haven was no longer a battlefield. It was a rescue zone. The days that followed were a blur of tireless work. Food ships arrived in convoys. Mobile medical stations filled the planet's orbit. And then something incredible happened. Alien volunteers, ships from species who had watched the battle in stunned silence, began arriving to join the human rescue teams. The galaxy had watched humanity get wounded, cut down to the bone, but it was still standing. In the hallowed halls of the Galactic Council, an emergency session was called. "This enemy will not stop at one world," a counselor warned. "They will target all of us, one by one," another added, fear creeping into their voice. All eyes in the chamber turned to the representatives from Earth. Admiral Cole stood, her presence commanding the room. "We will face them," she said, her voice ringing with resolve. "But we will not face them alone." She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every leader. "Choose," she said simply. "Hide and burn one by one, or stand together." The decision wasn't easy, but in the face of annihilation, it was clear. For the first time in history, the diverse fleets of the galaxy gathered under a single command structure, following a young, stubborn species from a small blue planet into war. The hidden empire returned sooner than anyone expected, and this time, they came in overwhelming force. The final battle for the galaxy took place in the eerie light of a dying star. Fleets filled space from horizon to horizon, a breathtaking and terrifying sight. The enemy struck first, a wave of energy that threatened to shatter the Allied formation. But the combined fleets, with humanity at their core, responded as one. The battle was a cataclysm. Planets in the system cracked under the sheer force of stray weapon fire. The light of the star itself seemed to dim under the constant flashes of destruction. Human ships took heavy, devastating losses, but they did not retreat. Inspired by their courage, the Allied ships followed their lead, holding the line. Slowly, impossibly, the enemy began to falter. At the height of the battle, human ground teams launched boarding actions against the enemy command ships. Hand-to-hand fighting raged in the dark, alien corridors. Wounded and exhausted, human soldiers pushed relentlessly forward. They reached the enemy's central command core, and there, they faced a choice: destroy it and end the war in a single, fiery blast. But kill the millions of enemy crews still aboard their paralyzed ships. The human command paused. The galaxy held its breath. Then the order came: disable. Do not destroy. The core was shut down. The entire enemy fleet went silent, adrift and powerless. The war ended not with a bang, but with a profound, echoing silence. Humanity had won, not by becoming the monster it fought, but by choosing to stop the cycle of destruction. The hidden empire had fallen. Its survivors were taken into custody, its worlds disarmed, and at the center of the galaxy's greatest victory stood humanity, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as protectors. They had been tested by fire, and from the ashes, they had shown the galaxy a new way to be strong. The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no parades in space, no triumphant songs of victory. There was only silence, a deep, profound quiet that stretched from one end of the cosmos to the other. The hidden empire, the scourge that had threatened every living species, was gone. Its fleets were broken, shattered remnants drifting in the void. Its command worlds, once impenetrable fortresses, were disarmed. The war, a conflict that had burned across countless star systems, was finally over, and humanity stood at the center of it all. Across the stars, damaged fleets limped home, their hulls scarred and their crews weary. On 1,000 different planets, people counted their losses, mourning the fallen. Memorial lights, tiny stars of remembrance, burned in orbit for those who would never return. On Earth, the skies were quiet again. The constant threat that had hung over them for so long had vanished. Human soldiers, sailors, and pilots returned home, not in grand processions, but slowly, quietly. Some came back with physical scars, some with wounds no one could see, and some did not come back at all. Humanity remembered them all, their sacrifices etched into the heart of their world. In the great, vaulted chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The hall had never been so full, a kaleidoscope of beings from every corner of the known galaxy. At its center stood a simple, unadorned platform. There was no throne, no crown, no symbols of power. When the human delegates arrived, they came without escort. They wore no weapons, no armor. They were just people, walking into the heart of galactic power. The High Speaker, a figure of immense authority, rose to address the chamber, but his voice, usually so commanding, was different now. It was careful, measured. For the first time in our history, he began, his voice echoing in the hushed hall. The galaxy stands because of one species. He turned his gaze toward the humans. You could have ruled us, he continued, the weight of his words palpable. After the war, no force in this galaxy could have stopped you. The chamber waited, 1,000 worlds holding their breath. Admiral Rhea Cole, a woman whose name was already legend, stepped forward onto the platform. We never wanted to rule, she said, her voice clear and steady. A murmur rippled through the assembly. It was an answer no one expected. You had the power. The High Speaker pressed, his confusion evident. The ultimate power. Why refuse it? Admiral Cole looked around the chamber, her eyes meeting those of many different species. She saw fear in some, hope in others, curiosity in all of them. Because we know what power does, she said softly. Unchecked power destroys everything it touches. She paused, letting the truth of her statement settle. Humanity nearly destroyed itself once. Images flickered to life across the chamber walls, holographic projections from Earth's own history. They showed old human wars, cities burning under skies choked with smoke, worlds broken by their own hands. The council watched, mesmerized and horrified. We survived, Cole said, her voice cutting through the silence. Because we learned when to stop. The council listened, truly listened, perhaps for the first time. Then, humanity made its offer. It was not an offer of control, not a demand for command. It was an offer of protection. We will stand with you, Cole declared. We will fight when it is necessary. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. She looked directly at the High Speaker. But, we will not rule you. The chamber fell utterly silent. And then, something incredible happened. One by one, the alien leaders, the kings, queens, and chancellors of 100 worlds, stood up, and they lowered their heads. It wasn't a bow of submission, not a gesture of fear. It was a sign of profound respect. It was not a bow to power. It was a bow to restraint. The High Speaker spoke again, his voice now quiet, filled with a newfound understanding. Then humanity shall be known as guardians of the Galactic Accord. The title echoed across the chamber and, soon, across the stars. Humans did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They simply accepted it, a heavy but noble responsibility. In the years that followed, the galaxy began to heal and change in ways no one had predicted. Pirate empires that had plagued trade routes for centuries fell, not to overwhelming destruction, but to precise, targeted captures. Conflicts that would have once spiraled into decades-long wars were resolved faster. Wars became shorter, less brutal, because humanity always arrived the same way, with fleets ready to fight, but with weapons restrained and mercy prepared. Human soldiers became symbols of a new era. When they appeared on a colony world, civilians felt safer. When their enemies saw the silhouette of a human starship, they hesitated, not because humans were cruel conquerors, but because they were known to be fair. On Haven, a colony world that had been burned to cinders during the war, life returned. Human engineers, working alongside alien volunteers, rebuilt the cities from the ground up. Children, both human and alien, played together under repaired skies. At the center of the new capital stood a memorial, its surface inscribed with names. Human names, alien names, allies and even former enemies, all remembered together. The galaxy was learning the fundamental human truth, that humans fight hardest not for conquest, but for each other. Years later, a young alien student, researching the Great War, asked an aging human veteran a question that had long puzzled historians. Why did your kind bring such a massive army to first contact all those years ago? The veteran smiled, a sad, knowing expression in his eyes. Because we hoped we would never have to use it. The galaxy never forgot that answer, because in the end, humanity didn't shock the galaxy with its strength, it shocked it with its choice. The choice to protect instead of dominate. The choice to save instead of destroy. The choice to be more than just warriors. And so, when future civilizations looked to the stars and wondered what kind of beings waited for them in the vast darkness, they did not feel fear when they thought of humanity. They felt trust. Because when the galaxy finally met Earth's army, it did not meet gods or conquerors. It met guardians. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.